Welcome to the Brave Little Podcast. Aaron Alvarado from Los Angeles, California. How you doing, man?
That's me. I've been better. The Dodgers are down 2-3 in the World Series. Game 6 is tomorrow, and I'm not liking our chances.
Game 5, by the way, for someone like me who does not have a dog in this race, I think that's what they say. A dog in this fight or a horse in this race.
Sure.
I just mixed those two, I think is what I did. Someone who does not have a horse in this race. That was terrifying to watch. I can't imagine if that were my Oakland days. How did you survive that game?
I don't think that I did. I believe that
did?
I actually died during that game, and I was revived when they tied it in the bottom of the ninth with 3
So
runs.
you died and you did not go to heaven.
No. Oh, no. I was in purgatory for a little while, and then I got the ticket straight down. That was, I've never seen a game like that in any sport. It's unfathomable how many lead changes we had, how no one could hold on to a lead, how no one wanted to win it, and we ended up losing it. So very, very rough, very tough to watch.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, I don't envy. I wish my team were in the World Series, and you obviously still have very much a chance at winning it.
I wouldn't wish this on you. I'll tell you that right now, because I can feel the impending doom coming tomorrow. But it's been a good run. I'm so stinking happy that I got to go to Game 1. That's right.
Yeah. Since we last recorded, you went to a World Series game.
This is true.
Can you tell me? Just give me a little bit, just a snapshot of the experience. What is it like going to a World Series game?
It's hard to put into words. It's literally the most exciting sporting event I've ever been to in my life. And this is coming from someone that's a hardcore LA Kings fan, and I've been to 2 Stanley Cup Finals. And those were great. Those were amazing. Up until that point, going to the World Series, those were the 2 best sporting events I've ever been to. But going to Dodger Stadium, 57,000 people, all seemingly entering at the exact same time as me, by the way. There was lines for everything.
Of course.
But yeah, to be amongst those 57,000 people, it felt like the closest thing that I've compared it to numerous times, numerous people, is it was religious. It felt like church, basically.
Really?
Yeah, it feels like there's a higher
like a
power
Pentecostal
there.
experience.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, there's no doubt about it. There's no joking about it. I've been to numerous Pentecostal churches, and it's the exact same feeling that I've had.
Wow.
Going to that stadium. Now, I will say that the experience after the game was terrible because, like I said, getting out of the parking lot was a hectic situation. But it was all worth it, man. So even down to the cost of the seats, whatever. It did cost a lot of money, and I don't regret it whatsoever. I do not regret it whatsoever.
Well, it was a heck of a ball game to go to the Game 1.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the game started, for anyone that didn't watch, the Dodgers, they're at home, so they're batting second. And first pitch of the game, home run. It was a home run on the very first pitch of the game.
The place, I can't imagine, the place had to have just gone absolutely bananas.
I've never heard it louder. I've never heard it. I thought I was going to black out from screaming.
Wow.
We're talking about, I'm hugging, high-fiving fans people that I don't know. They're just sitting next to me. It was just so much fun. It was just a really, really great experience. Like I told people, I don't really care. Obviously, I want us to win this World Series. But even if we don't win, I am so incredibly happy that I got to go to that first game. So
yeah.
Now, that being said, the game last night was miserable.
Well, at least you weren't there.
No kidding. I don't think that I would have made it out of that stadium. Yeah. So
well, you may have made it out of that stadium, but not with maybe at least 1 or 2 Houston fans making a racist gesture of some kind towards you.
It's absurd, the amount of people that were caught on Twitter making the Asian eye thing.
Yeah.
Which is I seriously thought that was dead in the 90s when I was a kid.
Yeah. Well, this is it. That whole thing was weird for a lot of reasons. Not to mention entirely racist. No matter how many blog and articles are written about how where he's from, it's not that racist, like, which is unbelievable.
Right.
Like, to me, it makes the story even crazier. But like the fact he would do that in a World Series game, and the way he did it, like what he said when he did it, and while he was doing the Asian Eyes, and then the fact that MLB decides to suspend him for 5 games next season because heaven forbid you make him pay for it now, punish him during the series in which he committed the crime. Like maybe that's when you punish the person.
Exactly.
But no, it's the World Series. You don't want to ruin someone's World Series. Heaven forbid.
One of the justifications I heard from the Major League's
the appeals.
The commissioner said that based on the response of the Dodger player that he was mocking, they figured it was better if they punish him next season because Darvish took it so well and basically took the high road. So they basically victim blamed the guy who got racially taunted. And
so if Darvish wouldn't have taken the high road and really been a little bit more outraged, then that's so dumb.
It's really terrible. It's deplorable, and it's a total cop out. And this is something that I've talked about with other Dodger fans. And if Darvish was black and Gurriel makes some sort of black racial stereotype, there is no way on earth that he doesn't get suspended for the rest of the series.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And I think that's double standard, and it's unfortunate that they embrace that double standard against Asian people and players and fans. It's pretty ridiculous. So.
Yeah,
bad on
the fact that he hit a home run in that game doesn't make it any better.
Of course, and that's the other thing. They said that they don't want to punish his teammates by sitting him in the World Series. It's like, are you?
That's the deal. That's the deal.
Yes. Yeah. So whatever. I'm not bitter about that at all.
Don't be bitter about it. It cost you a game. It literally cost you a game.
No kidding. But Houston strong, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Houston strong.
I actually blame you for helping them.
Yeah.
With the unloading that truck.
I was just there several weeks back. It makes me regret a little bit going down there.
So the series has been amazing. It's really hard to watch as a fan, but I'm enjoying it ultimately. Yeah. So I don't know if we're gonna win tomorrow, but it would be nice if we could at least push it to Game 7. So.
Yeah, and it's going to be in LA tomorrow.
Next 2 games are in LA. So
next 2 games are in LA.
And Puig is already guaranteed a win for Game 6. So.
Oh, he has.
He has.
Oh, good for him. That's good.
Oh, it's great for him. And today was a day off for the entire team. One guy showed up to take batting practice. Guess who that was? Puig.
Puig.
That's right. My homie Puig. So he's taking it serious.
I hope he flips so many bats.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, because look, like I said before, I'm not a Dodgers fan, but like I've certainly been rooting for them for your sake.
Yeah.
But ever since the Asian Eyes thing, about the Houston player, I'm all in on the Dodgers 100%.
Yeah. Really want them
to win this one. So
it would be nice. I think it's interesting that people are actually talking about baseball again, and it takes these 12 to 13 games to get people to actually care about it. But it's like don't expect that, because that's not how baseball really works typically.
Yeah.
I've seen people talk about, this is the first game I've ever watched start to finish, and it was amazing. I'm like, that's not really how it works during the regular season. But
yeah. Well, playoff baseball, it's some of the best postseason of any of the professional sports.
Without a doubt.
Do you rank where? Like when you talk about postseasons, what sports do you rank where?
Well, so postseason for me, the most exciting has always been hockey. I just feel like the players amp it up and everything moves faster. Every shift matters basically, and it's obviously the most physical and the most dangerous as far as I'm concerned. But after this World Series run for the Dodgers, I've never been more stressed out in a game. Every single pitch matters, and it's the craziest thing ever. It's almost too dramatic. It's insane, man. So for me now, it's neck and neck of baseball and NHL hockey for playoffs. So playoff football kind of sucks, if we're gonna be honest.
Playoff football isn't.
It's not great.
The Super Bowls. We've had some entertaining Super Bowls recently, for sure, but not great.
No.
NBA playoffs are way better.
Oh, NBA playoffs are great. Fourth quarter NBA playoffs are amazing.
Yeah, they are. It's incredible.
They're pretty incredible. So
it is incredible.
And then I put the LPGA number 3 actually.
And number 3, easily. Yeah, dude, that's good grief. Well, speaking of the LPGA, Stranger Things 2.
Wait, do you mean Stranger Things season 2?
Oh, good question, Aaron.
Yeah.
The way that Stranger Things does this is that it's not a show called Stranger Things with season 1 and season 2. They're having it be, instead of a second season, they're having it be a sequel season is what they're calling it. And so it's Stranger Things and Stranger Things 2. It's really interesting they've done it this way, but that's the way they're doing it.
Yeah. Kind of pointless, if you ask me.
Yeah. It drops this past week.
Right.
Thursday night, midnight Pacific time, which is also the same night that the iPhone 10 pre-orders went up. So I had just gotten done pre-ordering my iPhone 10.
Wait, did you get an iPhone?
I did.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
What's
It
your ship
delivers this Friday.
Kill it.
Yeah.
Very good.
So pretty excited about it. So iPhone 10, also Super Mario Odyssey releases on the Switch. Big deal to me. And then also on top of the Switch, or the Super Mario Odyssey on Switch release, the new Weezer album drops the same day. So iPhone, Stranger Things, Mario game, Weezer. It was a big day in the life of David Stoffer. I can tell you what.
That's Christmas for millennial white male right there.
Millennial white male born in the late 80s.
Oh yeah.
Or I should just say raised in the 90s, basically. With Weezer and nostalgic shows like Stranger Things. So I stayed up and watched the first episode, and then of course I just binged the heck out of it.
Yeah.
You binged it and you've watched it. We should probably give a fair warning that we're going to be talking about some plot points throughout here. I don't think we're going to avoid spoilers for the most part. Is that right?
I don't think we can. It's really if we're going to talk about this show, it would do it a disservice to avoid all spoilers. Okay. So if you haven't seen it, close your browsers now and go watch.
Close your browsers. Turn off your car stereo right now. The podcast app, if you're listening to it, if you're on Facebook Live, now would be a good time to probably stop. We're gonna go into let's not go into the very end of spoilers. So if you're like up through season or up through episode 7 or so, I think it's gonna be safe to listen to. We won't talk maybe like the very last episode type stuff, but we will be talking at least specific scenes, storylines, anecdotes from the show. Now, Aaron, were you a fan of season 1 or Stranger Things?
So Stranger Things 1, the origin, I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. It really gave me hope as to what Netflix could produce content-wise, because it was one of these shows with zero fanfare, and they just kind of sprung it on the public, and everyone found it and watched it at the same time and was just blown away by it. So I loved season 1 of Stranger Things.
Great. So similarly, I mean, it just dropped on Netflix as some new original programming. Never heard of it. Never saw a trailer, no nothing. And I watched and I was immediately hooked. Watched the whole thing. Obviously, it became now Netflix doesn't release data. We don't know what their viewership numbers are. They're famous for being private with that information because they don't have to release it for television advertisers. They don't have to have the Nielsen ratings. And so to their benefit, they can just keep all the data private, which they do for the most part. I'm assuming Stranger Things has got to be one of their top 5 shows. If not the number 1.
Yeah. I mean, everyone that I've talked to that has Netflix has watched Stranger Things, like the entire season. So it's universally appealing. Of course, there's people that didn't enjoy it as much as I did or you did. But
sure.
Generally speaking, I think everybody at least thought it was fun, which is, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's probably the goal, right? To make a fun show that people will come back to.
And I guess Netflix spent $5 million on a Super Bowl spot for a trailer. And they're not doing that if it's not one of their top 3 shows. I can tell you that.
No way. Yeah. I mean, we know how much they love the Adam Sandler movies, but they will not drop Super Bowl trailer.
Which apparently are seen like by millions of people.
Of course they are. I don't understand it. Although I've heard good things about the latest one. The
Have you?
the Mousekewitz or whatever it's called.
Is it the Sandy Wexler one?
Yeah, no, it's not Sandy Wexler. It's The Cobbler 2. Season 2 of The Cobbler. Did you watch The Cobbler? Do you know what The Cobbler story is?
Yeah, I have not watched it, no.
Okay.
But I know it's directed by the same guy who directed Spotlight, which is hilarious.
Absolutely. And I know we said we weren't going to go heavy spoilers, but I do have to spoil this. The Cobbler is actually a superhero movie.
No, it is not.
No joke. 100% it is a superhero movie.
The Cobbler?
The Cobbler, yes.
Is a superhero movie.
That's the twist in the
kidding.
movie. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Now you don't have to watch it.
Okay, perfect. I don't have to watch it. Excellent. Then I won't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, if you see me going in and out on the reception here, my apologies. I had to move into this room, which is closer to my router, to get better internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just FYI, I think we're still having some issues, but stick with us. Okay, Aaron. Next question: Stranger Things 2. Did it live up to Stranger Things 1?
For me, it did not live up to the hype of Stranger Things season 1, but there are still a lot of good things that it does.
So I would, yeah. So I'm going to piggyback on that. This season to me pales in comparison to season 1. Yeah. That being said, it is still an entertaining piece of content compared to everything else that's available to me right now. It's more entertaining than 90% of the stuff that's out there.
Exactly.
So I'm happy they released it. I'm happy I got to watch it. But when it comes to, if we're going to compare, and I realize it's not totally fair sometimes to do that, this was just nowhere near the level of season 1. And that bummed me out a little bit. But I want to talk about why that is by highlighting what I'm going to call some highlights and lowlights. Also some MVPs and some LVPs. Did you have anything else you wanted to say generally before we got into those specifics?
I mean, generally speaking, if you temper your expectations and you're just in it for a ride that's going to be, a good time, then you'll get that out of season 2. Do not go into it thinking it's going to be better than season 1, because frankly, it's not better than season 1.
Yeah.
It's still okay though. It's still fine for the most part.
So the question now is why? I mean, I make this analogy all the time about like a band's first album can oftentimes be their best album, but that's because they've had a ton of time to perfect the music, the lyrics, until finally they record it under an album, and then they get signed to some label, and they have all these hits on it, and then they need to turn around their sophomore album in like 6 months, and they didn't have the years to be able to kind of curate the music. I feel like this happened to the Duffer Brothers on Stranger Things. It was such a big hit. The Netflix is like, let's get that second season going now. And they started filming the first episode, but while they were still writing the last few episodes. And so I think you can feel that. And I think part of the reason why I was let down a little bit in the season is because these characters that they've created are just super relatable, super fun. You're invested in them. And that's a sign of the good work that the Duffer Brothers have done, creating these kids and the adults that are characters that you want to root for, you want to watch their journey. So it's hard when you see what they've done with some of them in part 2. And so that's kind of going to be my focus of the highlights and lowlights, is what they've done with some of the characters in addition to introducing new characters that I may have had some problems with, Aaron.
I agree with you 100%. I think that these guys didn't expect. I don't even think that they expected to do a season 2. We know that it took them years upon years upon years to actually sell the idea of Stranger Things, and I think they pitched it for something like 5 or 6 years, and no one wanted to buy it. So how they could figure on a second season? I mean, I don't think that they could, obviously. But and it shows in this, and I think this season there's a lot of filler episodes, and I think that's a mark of someone stretching out content, and I think that's one of the reasons they added all these new characters, because it's probably easier to write with brand new characters than make compelling stories with characters that are already established. And I think that's one of the challenges, and I would say they kind of fumbled using the characters that we all loved from season 1. I don't like a lot of the stuff that they did with about half the cast of the season 1 cast. And I can't say that I was a huge fan of the new characters. So So really,
Well, what I was gonna say, what I mean, it's fine if they want to sideline half the cast, original cast when they introduce new characters like Billy. I mean, Billy was great, right?
did you know Billy smokes and he drives fast?
Billy smokes cigarettes, Aaron.
Yeah.
He smokes cigarettes.
yeah.
He drives a Camaro really fast, like
He's a
really
loose
fast.
cannon. Yeah. That
Oh, he is a
Billy.
loose cannon.
Yeah. He's a
Like,
ladies' man too.
Yeah, don't get stuck having conversation with Billy in the gym shower after gym class. Don't. He's gonna bully you. He's gonna bully the heck out of you.
Yeah, I was not a fan of Billy.
Yeah, the good news about Billy is that he wasn't entirely one-dimensional, right?
No,
What about Billy's dad? Are you a fan of Billy's dad?
Oh, I love Billy's dad. I thought Billy's dad really ramped it up. Yeah, his dad was fun.
No, yeah, fun might not be the word I would use to describe Billy's dad.
I would
And I
use a
love how they
different-
try to give us a piece of why Billy was the way he was by showing his dad. Like, do we need to know why the one-dimensional character is so one-dimensional? I don't think so.
I need to figure out what the motivation was for smoking a cigarette while doing shoulder presses or whatever he was doing with the weights.
He was smoking a cigarette while just cracking cold ones, doing the shoulder presses. Like,
Well, he was smoking a cigarette and he had two lit between his ears. I was like, what? All right, we get it. He's tough. It's pretty ridiculous.
yeah, and then that I think is that same scene. His sister goes to get the door, and she lies to him about who's at the door because he doesn't want her hanging out with Lucas for reasons he doesn't say.
No, he doesn't, but it's definitely implied.
It's definitely implied.
Yeah.
And her excuse was that she was talking to Mormons, which, as a Mormon myself, I enjoyed that excuse. That was a terrific excuse. We can be talkative, and we do knock on your doors. Anyway, so like I said, I want to talk MVPs, LVPs, highlights and lowlights. We talked about how these characters we care about from the original series, which makes us wonder why they're introducing new characters. You had mentioned what you didn't like what they did with half the cast. So let's start there. I want to, as much as I can, I want to have this conversation be equal parts positive as it is negative.
Sure.
To highlight the fact that you and I do think this was still great content and it was really interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's fair because it's easy to nitpick stuff, but the truth of the matter is the stuff that they do well is really great, and it's really fun.
It is really good.
Yeah, and that's why we're all fans of the show. Really, I think.
So let's start there. What was a highlight or an MVP?
Well, like right off the top, highlight MVP is Dustin's character.
Yes,
Dustin gets he's just about like the main character of the kids, basically.
At the expense of Mike.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So Mike is Mike is basically a background character for the entire season. Dustin takes the forefront, and I think that's a response to the huge kind of fan outpouring that Dustin's character had. I think that's a direct response to that, and it's a great choice because that kid is like, he's such a great little actor, really charismatic. He's funny. He's really funny.
Oh yeah.
So I think that was a wise choice. So that's, for me, he's my MVP right at the top. Dustin.
Totally agree. No, a great actor. Definitely one of the MVPs of season 1. And then I'm glad to see them give him screen time, even though he's a character that makes kind of a stupid decision that has catastrophic consequences.
Are you talking about the dance?
What's that?
Are you talking about the dance scene?
Yeah, dude, 3 strikes to that guy. The snowball did not work out for Dustin. No, with the dart, by the way. So D'Artagnan, this little lizard thing he names Dart, he obviously makes some stupid decisions. I actually think the Duffer Brothers made a stupid decision by foregoing what I thought was an obvious blue dart joke. They made the thing yellow instead of blue. It's like, why don't they call it blue dart? I thought it was perfect, and no, apparently not. So, no blue dart joke, not for me. I agree with you. Dustin is a highlight for me at the expense of Mike. So that's going to be one of my MVPs and LVPs. LVP being Mike. He was emo Mike.
Yep.
The whole season starts with him being all mopey about 11. He's all mopey about this new Max girl, not allowing her into their club, their little AV club, their group, the party. Their D&D party, and he really never kind of broke out of that even towards the end when he's supposed to have that scene of redemption or whatever like that, he still was just a background character. And I'm grateful that Dustin was able to fill that void. But this character, Finn, played by an actor named Finn Wolfhard, who was in the It adaptation, the theatrical, he's a highlight in that film. And he was a highlight in the first season of Stranger Things. So to see him become such a background character for a really kind of young up and coming actor was really surprising. But thankfully, Dustin was there to fill the void, and that was my kind of one of my highlights. Wasn't just Dustin, but what I like to call the adventures of Dustin and Steve. So that whole arc with those two characters for me was the absolute highlight of this show. And they even have a scene walking on the railroad tracks, which was very Stand By Me-esque on purpose. They even had a scene like that in season 1 on the railroad tracks. The Duffer brothers are not subtle in their 80s movie references, including some Goonies references by Sean Astin, which were absolutely not subtle. And we'll talk about that in a second, I'm sure.
Well, he hands the guy a Baby Ruth, which is really
yes, literally the sponsor of this episode, Baby Ruth, nougat, which is, Blue Dart's favorite candy. Anyway, the whole thing with Dustin and Steve worked out because Steve had nothing to do in this season once his arc kind of finished in the first couple of episodes due to his relationship with Nancy Wheeler. And I'm glad that they were able to connect Dustin and Steve the way they did. And that resulted in, for me, was probably the best storyline.
That's really a strong one. And I thought that was a lot of fun. I think it does bear mentioning the fact that Lucas's character gets a ton of screen time. He does a great job.
Yep.
That actor. He gets the romantic angle with the new girl, which is that was fun to watch. I was wondering how they were going to handle that, and I like the way that played out. So, got to give him credit for that one.
Yeah, he was awesome. Again, I think another one at the expense of Emo Mike.
Oh, absolutely.
So both Lucas and Dustin's characters had a lot more screen time.
Yeah.
Because Mike got sidelined.
Right.
And speaking of sidelined, one of my lowlights is sidelining 11.
Absolutely.
Now, some people, that's their favorite character. Other people, not a huge fan of 11. I don't know how you can not be a fan. I thought she was terrific in season 1. And to see her get sidelined literally the whole season. Now, granted, she gets her own episode in episode 7, which was unfortunately an enormous misfire of an episode. Another one of my lowlights. That whole episode was just downright bad. It was downright bad.
Yeah. So getting rid of 11 or pushing 11 back and then pushing Mike back, that creates a vacuum, right? And I think that they filled that with Dustin and Steve and Lucas and the new girl. What was her name? What was the new girl's name?
Mad Max.
Exactly, Mad Max.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting new dynamic, right? Because Mike and 11 had the whole romantic thing, kind of, I guess, sort of. But then you get that with Lucas and Mad Max. So
yeah, exactly. Clay Welch is listening right now, comments and agrees that 11 side story in Chicago, not good.
Nailed it. It was
like
so bad.
He says, give me a Dustin and Steve buddy comedy show. I'd take a buddy cop show.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I would do.
No kidding.
They're old enough to enter the academy, right? Some sort of junior academy. So I have another... let's see. I'm going to go back to highlights. I'm going to go back to highlights for me. An MVP featured in at least one episode prominently, and then a couple other just a couple side scenes is an actor, Brett Gelman, who plays the conspiracy theorist guy that Nancy Wheeler and Jonathan Byers have to go visit, and they put together the whole stuff. He was great, and they had a whole good scene in there, even if part of his whole scene involved Nancy and Jonathan getting together for reasons that I fully don't understand. I was going to ask you that. Why does Nancy go with Jonathan?
I couldn't tell you. I don't understand that motivation whatsoever.
Me neither.
It just doesn't.
He did take pictures of her having an intimate, relationship with someone just last season, which he's not apologized for. It's still weird. Yeah, he's still that weird guy.
Well, I mean, just look at his face. That's the weirdness right there. He's incredibly odd looking. But beyond that, he's just like his character sucks. Like there's nothing redeeming about him. He's just kind of
No.
he's an
No, I
awkward
mean he
nerd.
seems to care for his little brother, but he cares for his little brother by the amount that any older brother should, like the bare minimum, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
This is a great line in
Yes,
that
that is a
episode.
good joke as a result of their relationship,
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, I
Uh,
felt that was incredibly awkward. The Nancy and that dude Jonathan, love and Steve love triangle. And I felt like so Steve I felt is wasted for the first half of the season,
he is.
and he's
And
kind of replaced by the new bully guy who's
yes,
Billy, right? Billy, is that
Billy.
his name?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just Billy is just so laughably bad. I cannot.
Oh, he's terrible.
The introduction of Billy is just so incredibly cheesy. And
Oh, it's awful.
I understand that this is what they're going for 80s camp, but like the introduction is it's just so it's such a misfire. I don't understand how they could
Well,
leave that in there.
how many times can he peel out in his Camaro? Just over and over. It's like we get it.
Right,
We get it.
exactly. And I love
Now,
the scenes of
Billy
him
had
driving
one
past.
good scene though.
Oh, absolutely, no question about it.
So, and what scene was that?
So it's the scene where his sister Mad Max goes missing, and
Yeah.
Billy is going around town looking for her, and he stumbles upon whose mom is it? Who's
Oh, the Wheelers.
It's-
Mike and Nancy Wheeler's mom.
yeah,
Mrs. Wheeler.
it's the Wheeler, it's Mrs. Wheeler. And they have a moment. They have a very interesting moment in her kitchen
Sure
where
do.
he's suggestively eating cookies. And no, it's actually a really fun little moment. It's funny that scene. Like
No, that's good.
that's Billy's only good scene of the entire season. So,
Yes.
and it comes in episode what 8, 9?
Yeah, it's way at the end. I think it's 8 or 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely towards the end. I really thought that Billy was going to have something to do. And it's amazing to me that he didn't. Like he was. What's interesting is they didn't have a human, like an embodiment of they didn't have a human antagonist, right? Because they had the kind of the mad scientist doctor or whatever that like similar to how they had in season one,
Mm-hmm.
but that guy ended up not so bad after all. I mean, he gives a very good evil audio clip for Jonathan Byers and Nancy Wheeler to use for their arc. But other than that, the dude wasn't bad.
No.
And so they needed someone to be bad. So they introduced this super one-dimensional Billy character that, again, we get value out of a really good scene with Miss Wheeler. But
that's the only good thing. And also, he acts as the redemption for Steve. So Steve is kind of a jerk in season 1. He's kind of
Yeah.
he's full of himself for sure.
Yeah, he is.
And he's basically an ass. But since Billy is like an ass to the 10th degree, he makes Steve seem likable. So
amazingly.
yeah.
And another part of Steve's redemption is giving some terrific hair advice to Dustin, who needs the hair advice, honestly. Because he has a curly hair. He doesn't know what to do.
No. There's just so much wrong with poor little Dustin. But he tries.
Yeah.
He tries.
Well, I love how 11 points out his teeth.
That was great.
So, sidelining 11, I'd mentioned being a big downside. I don't know if I loved the dynamic of her and Hopper being in that like cabin together. It was kind of weird, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree.
And I like the Hopper character a lot. I just felt like too many episodes, too many scenes were wasted with them being apart from everyone else. There's the strength of that core is when they're together. Now there's a whole storyline here that is a direct result of fan reaction, and that is the Barb character from season 1.
Yeah.
People wanted justice for Barb, and so they literally have Jonathan Byers and Nancy's whole storyline to be about justice for Barb. Do you think that was the right move for them to take? Was that interesting enough to have literally the entire season dedicated? Those two characters were dedicated to justice for Barb. Was that a good move, bad move?
I mean, if so, at face value, no, it's not. But
Yeah.
because so many of these main characters have so little to do, I guess it kind of works because they kind of default into it.
Yeah.
And I feel like they kind of stumbled into it basically, which is fine. I guess, you get the closure of Barb, but it's like she was such a nothing character. But again, fan service, so
It was
they had to
fan
do
service.
it.
It absolutely was.
But yeah, I just don't. It's just like funny. Just thinking back to season 1, Nancy wasn't even really that good of a friend to her. And then
No, she was a terrible friend. Not even that good of a she was a terrible friend. Like she wanted to leave Steve's house or wherever they were where that pool was, She wanted to go, but Nancy's like literally like, no, I'm not gonna take you home. I'm gonna go upstairs and go, there's gonna be some canoodling going on with Steve.
Right.
And I'm gonna make you sit uncomfortably outside.
Right.
And then get eaten by the monster in the pool. Like she was not a good friend.
No, of course not. And then to
No.
have the entire second season dedicated, like Nancy basically dedicated to redemption and closure for that is just kind of absurd. But
it seemed kind of odd. It did.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask you. We talked about Lucas and Dustin and Mike and Will and the whole and 11. Out of the core cast of kids, who is your MVP in terms of actor? Who do you think it really does the best work?
Well, I think we mentioned this earlier. The kid who plays Will, I thought he showed some incredible chops this season. Obviously, he didn't get much to do in season 1, but they gave him some real stuff to work with, and I thought he nailed it.
Well, that's the thing that surprised me most here is because we didn't see a whole lot of him in season 1 because he was, in the Upside Down. We just didn't see him, and we saw him in a couple up at the beginning and at the end. But like throughout, even though he was once again kind of paralyzed through some of these episodes, he still had a lot more face time.
Oh yeah.
And I was surprised at how nuanced this kid's acting was. He's a really good actor.
He's super talented.
I think he's the best of the group. Honestly. So.
Yeah, I think so. From what we saw, he definitely has the widest range, and he seemed very believable while he was possessed.
Yeah, I know. Now, he did a good job of being possessed. The interrogation scenes, him just looking around where you don't know if it's him or the thing inside of him.
Right.
It was pretty good.
It was great. It was actually really, really good. So my question is, by the time we get to the end of the season, what did we accomplish?
Yeah. Well, we got to the snowball.
The snowball, yes, that's right.
And I guess there was another thing in the Upside Down still attacking.
Yeah, isn't that the thing from his vision, right? That's the thing from Will's vision.
Yeah.
Still there. So
yeah,
like what did we accomplish, really? I mean, we killed a bunch of scientists.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I guess it's probably, again, we won't go into spoilers too much on this one. I do want to get your thoughts on the addition of Sean Astin. Because Sean Astin is 80s to me. I mean, that's the Goonies, that's Rudy, like he is 80s. Obviously popular for being Samwise the Brave. Did he work for you? Did his character work for you?
I at first I thought it was a bad choice casting him in that role, but as the season plays out, I think that the more he gets to work with, the better he is, obviously.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to the end of the season, I think that he did as well as you could in that limited role. So
yeah,
he works for me.
And it felt like they expanded it a little bit than what it originally was supposed to be or would be because they got Sean Astin.
Yeah.
Sure. There's a scene where they're mapping out all the stuff that Will had colored out, this kind of map of the tunnels or whatever it was. And he points to one part where it's like kind of X'd, and he's like, what is X? What spot does, what X marks the spot? Is that pirate treasure? Which is just a direct reference to the Goonies. I mean, he almost laughs, I think, in the scene. He like almost kind of says like, haha, like, get it? I'm Sean Astin from the Goonies.
I thought it was a little over the top when he did the truffle shuffle. Did he really need to do that in the middle of the scene?
When he rips his shirt off and it's a Superman shirt and he goes, Baby Ruth? What's funny is I actually feel like the 80s references were less overt in Stranger Things 2 than they were in the original.
Oh, you're absolutely right. They were. And I felt like they ran out of stuff to reference, to be quite honest.
Yeah, Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, Dragon's Lair. And I felt like basically once they go on the adventure of going through the caverns and whatnot, that kind of felt like they were doing a little Dungeons and Dragons, or even like a video game, basically.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Where they're trying to basically find the skills and compile a team that has all the skills to accomplish a task. So that felt like very much a video game or Dungeons and Dragons. So But other than that, there's not a ton that they're referencing from the 80s. Other than, like you said, the Stand By Me stuff, which they already did in season 1.
Yeah.
So
there's little odes to 80s stuff.
or the
with
gang
a lot of the scenes.
for the gang, Seven Sisters gang.
Oh yeah.
Or 8. What is or 11? I don't know.
Yeah.
One of those numbers.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The Misfire episode, as they refer to it.
Yeah. Those the terrible Chicago gang. Man, that was such a bad episode.
It was really bad.
Skip that one, folks.
It was really
you don't
bad.
need to see it.
Now, what I was surprised, so some of my other issues with this show this season, it took 4 episodes to get going, which is kind of inexcusable. You get 1 episode to set the stakes, maybe 2, but not 4. Not when you only have 9 episodes. I mean, that's like 4 episodes to set up and then 5 episodes of good content. And then of those 5 of good content, quote unquote, one of them is episode 7, which is not good. Right. And then you're left with 4. 2 of those 4, which was episodes 5 and 6, were directed by Andrew Stanton, who's a legendary Pixar director who directed Finding Nemo, who directed WALL-E, was a writer on Toy Story and Monsters, Inc. I mean, this guy's legendary. And so from what I understand, and when I saw his name in the credits, I thought, is that the Andrew Stanton directing, an episode of Stranger Things? He apparently saw the first season, loved it so much that he made a phone call and said, I want to be a part of this. I need to be a part of, of episode or of season 2 of Stranger Things. And they said, you know what, here's 2, we're going to give you 2 episodes to direct.
That's awesome.
And so it was really cool seeing him be able to direct those. And then, of course, they were followed up by the director who did episode 7 was just a 1 episode deal. And it wasn't good.
No, it's really bad. Someone on Slash Film, one of their writers, referenced episode 7 and how, in essence, it was just a pilot for a spin-off show starring 8 or whatever her character is.
Yeah.
And like upon further review, it absolutely is that. They're trying to spin off the characters into something else. And it's pretty embarrassing that they left that in there. So,
well, it's hard because we only had 9 episodes and you take 1 to establish a spin-off series potentially, and man, that's not a spin-off show that I'm interested in seeing. It's just not.
Oh no,
those aren't characters I'm interested in following. It's just not, and it took away a full episode of the season, so that was a bit of a bummer for me. And we alluded to this earlier. One of my kind of lowlights for, again, a season that I otherwise enjoyed. If you're going to introduce new characters, they've got to have meaning. And I just don't feel like even Sean Astin's character, which again is the best of the new characters, but even then it was very kind of 80s fan servicey to have him in there. And I'm glad he was. But like of the ones that are going to be lasting, I don't think there was a single new character that was worth adding. Mad Max felt like they added her to the group because 11 was sidelined the whole season in a cabin in the woods or in Chicago with some gang, some 80s punk gang. And so Mad Max comes in and I really want to like this character, but I'm not. There's nothing there. Like they allude to some backstory. I'm thinking like maybe we'll learn a little bit more about her, but they don't spend the time for us to get to know her.
Exactly. So they make her a computer or video game wizard, basically, and they don't explain how she got the skills or why she developed those skills or what those skills imply that she can do otherwise, other than ride a skateboard, I guess, and give some quippy little answers. This is just, I just felt like they totally bungled that. She should be an interesting character, but
she should be. I mean, it was good to have like. Again, Lucas and Dustin, there was kind of like a love triangle going on there, which was a better love triangle than the Steve, Jonathan, Nancy one.
Oh, yeah, by far.
Again, not a great, Nancy and Jonathan and Steve. Again, I need to remind everyone, Jonathan took photos of her, when she was not fully this is not okay. Not okay.
No.
There's no way Jonathan should not end up with Nancy. Okay, he did some terrible things that he does not apologize for. I need to remind people of that. Okay, people cannot forget what Jonathan did. He took photos of her. Okay, all right.
Jonathan's a creep. 100%.
Jonathan's a creep. Okay, so he cares about his older brother, and that's good, or his younger brother, and that's good. But he's a creep.
He's a creep, and I'm starting to think that one of the Duffer brothers might be a creep as well. And so this is him playing on his fantasy.
They're certainly trying to get us to sympathize with one.
Well, my only hope is
Anyway.
like there's a big story that came out that the actor that plays Jonathan was just busted
Yeah.
for cocaine possession at LAX and was
Oh, he
refused
was.
entry.
He came in for the premiere from the UK.
Yeah.
The actor that plays his name's Charlie Heaton,
Hmm.
plays Jonathan Byers. He gets detained at LAX for having trace amounts of cocaine, of which he admitted to consuming on the plane, and they won't let him in the country. And you know what? Maybe the real life character or the real life person isn't so far from the character. I do need to step back a little bit and mention Lauren, who is paying attention, commenting, mentions in reference to the spin-off series from episode 7. She writes, "I would not watch it." LOL. So I think we're not alone here.
No.
I think a majority of these people watching it probably have a similar response. Not a series we're gonna watch. So Netflix, don't make that.
No, well, they're gonna make it.
I would rather watch like a prequel series of Bob's character at Radio Shack just fixing things. Like I would rather have that show.
Yeah, you want to see him establishing the AV club because we learned that.
Yeah, exactly.
We learned that.
Like let's do a CGI Sean Astin from the Goonies. Do CGI Sean Astin establishing the AV club in the 70s or whatever
Right.
it was.
So here's the thing: if you're gonna do fan service and bring in like '80s icons, why not go the full 9 yards and bring in Corey Feldman?
That's what I'm saying.
Could you imagine?
Well, it's because Sean Astin has like integrity intact, I think, is why. Because Corey Feldman would have been the real. That would have been the one to go for.
I would support a Corey Feldman.
Oh
as
my
long
gosh.
As,
If they,
oh, I just
oh
had a great
well,
idea.
don't think for a second that Corey Feldman's agent hasn't been just dialing the Duffer Brothers number
Well,
nonstop.
He's
I
a
mean,
little busy right now, but in my perfect season 2, Corey Feldman's band is playing at the Snowball.
That's great.
Yeah. Or even better, we bring back Marvin Berry and his band,
Oh,
and it's fronted by Michael J. Fox.
it's Michael J. Fox
Yeah.
from today.
Yes, exactly. From today.
Can we get Crispin Glover?
No, I don't think he's busy. He's preoccupied.
Oh,
at
he's
the
busy.
moment.
Yeah.
He's
All those
he's
roles
making
he's-
another rat movie.
Oh.
Did you ever see that one? What was it called?
Oh,
Willard?
what was it called? It was like Wallace or no, what was
Willard.
it?
It was called
Willard. Willard. Yeah. Wallace.
Wallace.
Oh. Well, all right. What other highlights and lowlights did you have?
Another highlight that I had was I actually thought that they really handled Winona well in this season.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was genuinely worried that they were going to give her too much to do, and we know that she gets in trouble when she has too much to do. So I do like how they handled her throughout the 9-episode run. So I'll give them credit for that for sure.
Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah, she did a great
But I
job.
think you're right. With too much to do, sometimes Winona can go a little overboard.
What about how'd you feel about Paul Reiser in his role?
So it kind of seemed like an obvious casting when I saw him, and I was like, oh, of course, Paul Reiser is going to be the evil doctor. What was weird is like the motivations of the doctor and whether or not, like, you could tell they didn't want to do Matthew Modine again,
Exactly.
and they avoided that by creating an ambiguous, a character with ambiguous motives. And because of that, I don't know, I didn't like him, but I didn't dislike him enough to care. He just felt really disposable.
And I
It's
think
very
that's
standard.
that's an indictment on all the new characters. Like we've talked about
Yeah.
these repeatedly. They're all just kind of there. It's nothing
Yeah.
really groundbreaking.
Very filler. I would be 100% okay if season 3 drops and not any of the new characters are involved.
Just start over.
I wouldn't miss any of them for even a little bit. I'd be
over.
totally okay.
One thing that I do have to give him huge credit for was the monsters in this season were great. They looked amazing.
Yeah, they did.
All of the monsters looked great.
So I was reading about that. Apparently, the budget on the first season, which you can imagine, was quite a bit smaller than the second. They said that they had one dude on visual effects work part-time.
Oh wow.
And this one, they had a whole floor of people and a whole visual effects team that were dedicated full-time to making it come a reality.
Yeah, and it shows. It really does show, and
Yes.
they're frightening. The Dart character, the little lizard thing, He has
Yeah.
personality. I love that. I love how they handled that. That to
Yeah.
me is incredibly 80s. Like the movie, it reminded me of the movie Critters or Gremlins
Critters or Mac and
or
Me
Mac and Me,
or
exactly. Where
yeah.
where the little creatures has a character to it or personality
Yeah.
to it, and Dart did. So I love the way they handled that. So
Yeah, and feeding it nougat, like the
right.
whole that yeah, there's I feel like there's a lot of 80s references
Mm-hmm.
where, there's some sort of candy bar, like
Right.
obviously the Goonies, but there's some sort of connection made through candy or food or something.
Sure, yeah. Reese's Pieces or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Reese's Pieces,
Yeah.
exactly. So good. Well, for me, my lowlights were sidelining 11 the whole season. Also, in a sense, sidelining Mike by making him emo Mike. Those are two characters I really liked in the last season, and they were essentially non-existent.
Right.
In
Speaking
the
to
season
that
for
emo
me.
Mike thing, remember we get a scene early on in episode 2 when they're all dressed as Ghostbusters.
Oh
And,
yeah.
And who is the one that's whining about it?
Oh
Emo
yeah.
Mike.
Yeah. Well, I loved the Venkman and Winston joke. By the way, that was a good joke.
That's a very good like.
Of
Little
course,
bit.
Lucas doesn't want to be Winston.
Yeah.
Of course he doesn't. He's like, he shows up halfway through and he doesn't do anything. He wants to be the Bill Murray guy.
I love the way they handled that. So
That was awesome. So emo Mike, the overreaction to Barb, I makes me wonder if that should have been a storyline. I feel like they did Steve's character wrong. Steve was done wrong. Like, he was a highlight for me, the adventures of Dustin and Steve. But by the end of the show, Steve doesn't have a whole lot to walk away with. And as much as Steve was a jerk in the last season, he wasn't a creep. And
No,
in this
he
show, if
wasn't.
it's taught us anything, it's that the creeps win.
in the end, the creep will
If
win
you're
the
like
girl.
Jonathan Byers, if you take photos of people while they're undressing, you'll end up with the girl. Like, that's what happened.
So, but Steve does get the redemption of being able to swing that studded bat again.
Yes. Yeah, and really, I love how Dustin ran into Steve as Dustin is leaving in a great scene. By the way, when Dustin is at the door of Mike's house and Mike's dad has just no clue what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Where's our son? Where's our daughter? I don't know. And Dustin's like, son of a bee, you're useless. You're no help at all. And then he walks out with, Steve's character coming with flowers and being like, she's not there. Let's get in the car. You still got that bat. Like, let's go. Like, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And thus started my favorite storyline, of the whole season. And then lastly on my lowlights was episode 7. We've talked at length about that. My highlights, Brett Gelman's character, the conspiracy theorist, everything on the bus. So speaking of Steve and Dustin's storyline, everything they did on the bus was awesome.
Yep.
It was super fun. It was super tense. You got all the dart monsters coming out. Really, really liked that. Will Byers' character, his acting. And then I would say the end at Snowball scene worked. I thought it was good.
That, for me, that could be my favorite scene in the entire series.
The Snowball?
The snowball, because that is so perfectly 80s. Like, we've seen that
Yeah,
in
it
a million
was.
80s movies, and
Yeah.
I just respect the way they handled that, and it felt like kind of heartbreaking, but also kind of like you felt good and wholesome at the end. So
Yeah, it did. It was a very good 80s ending. Yeah.
for sure.
Well, we're about roughly an hour here. Any other Stranger Things to talk?
No,
or
but
points from you?
I was wondering, did you watch the post-game show of Stranger Things?
So I had forgotten that I'd seen the headlines that it existed. I had forgotten all about it. So I just started it earlier this evening, and I think I watched the first one.
Okay.
How about you? Have you watched it?
Yeah, I haven't watched it. So it's
Okay.
hosted by one of the characters from Community, and he's really,
Yeah.
really funny. So I will be checking that out.
Well, it looks like each episode has different characters, and so
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I'll probably end up watching it all, but I was going to jump to the characters that I was most interested in him talking to.
Billy, you're just gonna
Like,
watch.
well, yeah, exactly. I don't know if he's on any of them. He might be, but they definitely have one with Steve and Dustin, and so I did start watching that one.
Yeah, I'll check that one out for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Do we know what Steve is up to next in his professional career?
Yeah, I think
actor
some
that plays
more Ferris Bueller Domino's commercials.
Wow.
Have you seen those?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
He's actually pretty good in it. He does a good job.
Yeah. But I mean,
the
he's
kid
making-
looks so entirely 80s.
Exactly. So he's treading a dangerous line here. His career
Yeah, he is
based on his haircut. So
It is. Fantastic hair, though.
it's great. It's very good. I'm so jealous.
So I think we'll get season 3 probably in a year, somewhere between 12 and 18 months.
Do we know how long the show is running? Because I think I read something about
Yeah, I think they want to do 4 or 5 seasons or something like that. The problem is these kids are getting older. They're like almost 16 now.
Right.
It's like they're like 15 going on 16. Like there has to be. I heard the Duffer Brothers talking about how like they can't even pick up where they left off if they wanted to.
Right.
There always has to be at least a year, time jump just because the kids are looking older. And if you look back at clips from the first season, it's unbelievable how young they look.
Yeah.
Now that I'm conditioned to seeing them in part 2. It's they're gonna have to move because we know a couple things. One, kids age quickly, and 2, when they age, they get bad at acting.
And sometimes they start to look funny. So
Yeah, and some of them I'm concerned about.
oh yeah, there are major concerns with this cast.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it for me. Anything else?
That's it. I would just highly recommend, if you found season 1 enjoyable, definitely check out season 2. Even if the first 4 episodes are slow, it definitely picks up at the end, save for episode 7, which everyone universally hates. But other than that, it's really fun. Yeah. It's a great series. Good follow-up to season 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally worth watching. It's really entertaining content.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's our show. That's our episode. And, we have our little sign-off that we like to do. And as we say, hold on to your butts. Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. See ya.